This has to be on so that live streamers can hear if someone isn't mic'd up. So I'm really looking forward to Rev Kev teaching on Ecclesiastes. And so as our introductory song, we're going to sing Dream On by Aerosmith. Anybody? No, I'm just joking. The reason I say that is actually, if you have heard that song, it actually is kind of Ecclesiastes in a song. It's really interesting. Not that I'm endorsing Aerosmith. All right. I got to spend the next 4 weeks of my life doing an apology tour for mentioning Steven Tyler. Yes.
Who's Aerosmith?
Don't even. I know how you grew up, young man. Okay. All right. Let's sing a Christmas carol. We're singing a couple of different ones this morning, so I don't want to sing those. So let's sing. Let's sing "Joy to the World." We sang it last week, but let's sing it now, and we'll keep it upbeat. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. And nature sing. 45 seconds early. I know, I really want to do more, but I'm like, no, Kev, it's his time. It's his time. All right.
The people online don't know what I said. I'm good.
That's okay.
That's okay. Let's go back to verse 16. You can't hold it against me now. Verse 16, for there's no remembrance of the wise man, more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. I'm trying to do two things at once. It's not working. And now how dieth the wise man as the fool? Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken unto the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise unto the sun. This is also vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair in all the labor which I took unto the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom, and in knowledge, and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor, and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. I'm going to take a little different view this morning. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just stay on target. Amen. That's just what you ought to do, is just stay on target. We're going to go with this theme today, that getting is more important than the having. The getting is more important than the having. And we're going to go somewhere. And what we're doing with these first two chapters going into chapter 3, the way I'm kind of interpreting and understanding the writings that this preacher, this teacher, has been giving things to us through the Lord, is he's setting the foundation for the rest of the chapters, the rest of the letter, the rest of the scroll, the rest of the book. He's setting up what he wants to teach us. By the first chapter is more of an introduction. The first 2/3 of the first chapter is just an introduction. And then he goes in to tell us of what he was, who he was, what he did, what he had. And then as we get into this next section, we're going to give the why. I think that the teacher, this preacher, is giving us the why and what he's the conclusions that he's drawing. So when we start into chapter 3, which is for every season, there's a time for every thing under season. There's time for every purpose under heaven. Time to be born, time to die, time to plant, time to pluck up that which is planted. Once we get into that, you'll understand by this foundation that he's setting through these first 2 chapters, these first, I think, 3 or 4 paragraphs, he's introducing who he is, who he was, what he did, what he had, what he learned, what he saw, as setting this conclusion over what he'll want to teach us for the next, through the end of the book. And so he's setting this foundation for us to learn. And I think what he's trying to tell us as we're getting into this, and then of course we'll understand when we get to the last chapter and he gives us the conclusion of the whole matter, but we understand that the getting is more important than the having. So as we get into this, so let's review verses 1 through 10. He said he was going to prove this line of thinking. Remember, we taught that last week. He's going to prove his line of thinking. He saw wine and wisdom and folly and all the acts of men. He made great works and houses and vineyards and gardens and waterways and orchards and trees and built great things and had great herds and he just did great things. He had men servants and maid servants, possessions and herds and silver, gold, treasures, entertainment, anything that he desired. And so he's setting up this, he was telling us that he did all these things and learned all these things and got all these things. And now he's going to conclude at the end when he's looking back. When he hit verse number 11, remember I talked that last week, that this pivotal thing. He stopped and he looked at all of his works and all of his labor and realized it's just Hebel. It's just a longing of spirit. It's just a smoke. It's just a vapor. It's just a yearning. All that he had done, all that he had, all that he gained, all that he had learned, all that he possessed, all those things are just a vapor and a hungering. Oh, vapor and hunger. Oh, I think I found it. A vapor and a hungering. Oh, that work?
I think so.
A smoke and a hungering. A smoke and an addiction.
Hungary.
Hungering.
I thought you were saying a vapor and hungry. And I'm
like the nation hungry?
No.
Like what I was this morning as we were eating egg tacos.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
But a vapor and a hungry, that sounds more like a book subtitle. Like a dark fantasy.
a vapor and a hungering. What do you think? Next one, you just some dude widening on this, like really like this cream colored horse, and he has a bow and a sword.
Yeah.
Yes. But we learned in verse number 11, I am mentally messed up. You guys understand that, right? Yes. So he said, then I looked on all the works of my hands that had hand wrought, and on the labor that I'd labored to do, and it was all just simply vanity and vexation of spirit. There's no profit in it. All those things that I had consumed, all those things that I had gained, all those things that I learned, all those things that I saw, all those things that I possessed, when I looked back, I came to this realization of it just being smoke and a hungering. Oh, I like it. So cool. So then the rest of the chapter, the rest of the paragraph is basically his conclusions to this madness that he had come to. We ended the last time with him looking back and seeing all that had accomplished and all that came with this well-known conclusion, all is vanity and vexation of spirit, this vapor, this longing, this smoke and mirrors, this emptiness, this hunger. And in verse number 11, his writing takes a different turn because we know who the guy is. We know, well, we kind of assume that it's Solomon. I mean, that's a really, really good logical guess. But we understand this guy, who he is, what he had, what he did, what he possessed. And he's going to start telling us the conclusions or the things that he came to, this application and his thoughts, because once we get into chapter 3, it's going to his teaching is going to take a little bit of a different turn. And he's going to start giving us things that his thoughts, not just what he did. So verses 12 through 26 is his introduction to the real reason of his writings. Now, let's go to verse number 12. Verse number 12 says, and I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been already done. He said, who can accomplish all that I've accomplished? Who can learn and gain and do all those things that I learned and gained and did? No one that's going to come after me is going to be able to attain to the things that I did because, I'm the king. I built all this. I was part of this golden years of Israel. So who's going to be able to repeat what I had done? He testifies that he is the one best suited to tell us the things that he wants to tell us. Nobody has done things to this level and to the extent that I have, so that's probably why you should trust me on this one. I'm a real doctor. Remember that last week? You should trust me and order this wonderful miracle medication that you can get. Trust me. So he comes to a conclusion, and we're going to go through this chapter, and we're going to come up with 6 major points that he's trying to make through this chapter, things that I kind of found in here that will give us some thoughts and some applications. You ready? Here we go. Verse number 13. While wisdom is far better than foolishness, because the wise man can see where he is going, but they both end up in the same place. While wisdom is far better than foolishness, because he can see, they're going to end up in the same place. Look at verse number 13. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly. Remember he told us that he even got to the point where he even said, man, I'm going to even try some folly things. He said, I've done all the good things. I've done all the righteous things. He says, why not just have some fun and do some naughty things too? He said, I saw that wisdom excelleth folly as far as light excelleth darkness. Why? Because the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness. Well, because his eyes aren't in his head. He's not looking around. He doesn't see. But he said, I perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. If you understand that in the end, we understand that he comes down to the whole, we're all ending up in the grave. We'll get to that soon. Actually, we'll all get to that soon. Well, that's encouragement. I am here to encourage you today. We all get to die. We're going through a sad point. Our little Chihuahua, little buddy, he's got this COPD and he's coughing and hacking and he's sleeping a lot. And we're all just like, this is horrible. I don't think I want to do the pet thing anymore. You give your heart to this dumb little four-legged furry creature that barks and makes messes and it costs lots of money and then they die and you just feel like, I don't want to do this anymore. But the preacher said, I finally figured out that while wisdom is far better than foolishness, both the fool and the wise man, they end up going to the same place. And if they both end up dead, what's the advantage of learning doing all that I did? Who's really going to remember me? Verse 15, then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For there's no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which is now and is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. How dieth the wise man? That's the fool. So who's going to remember? Once I kick off, there may be some writings about me. There may be some paintings. There may be some things written down. They probably didn't foresee that this was going to be an eternal book. When they wrote these things down, they were just trying to help. But who's really going to remember? I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about this one spiritual documentary. It was a movie. And they were making fun of it because the year that it came out years ago, it was the greatest amount, brought in the greatest amount of money. But there was something different about this movie is no one remembers anything spectacular about the movie. Like, what are the main characters? Everybody knows who Yoda is. Any great quotes from the movie? No. Other than the fact that I know I can go into the description, but then I'd have to admit that I actually watched it. But anyway, but you're just not going to remember. You heard the same podcast, didn't you, Kim?
Well, I heard somebody else talking.
It was the same thing. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. It was Glenn. Anyway.
Yeah.
It was real pretty, though.
It was blue, okay? It's all you remember is it was blue and that mankind is horrible and trying to pillage the planet of the weird, tall blue people. That's the only thing you remember is man is bad and blue people are good. I don't know. I thought if you're blue, you're dying, but hey, you need oxygen. But you're not going to remember. And the preacher was saying, dude, I'm going to die. And all these great works, who's going to really remember all that I did? So it made me hate life. In verse 17, he said, so I hated life. Therefore I hated life because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. It's all vanity and vexation of spirit. Why? I hated all my labor because I'd taken it under the sun, because I should leave it unto a man that's going to come after me. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor when I have labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise unto the sun. That's also vanity. He said, I have all these treasures and these herds and these waterways and these buildings and all that I've done. And all I'm going to do is kick off, and the guy coming after me is going to get it all. Drives me crazy, the preacher said. For good reason. Because who knows if this guy's going to have a brain in his head? Who knows if he's going to do right? Who knows if he's going to be wise? He said, I'm going to have all these things. I've learned all these things. I've done all these things. I have all these things, and I'm just going to die, and the guy that's going to succeed me is going to get it all. I don't know if you know who Russell Anderson is. He's the dude that paid for Hyles-Anderson College and has invested millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into the ministry. And he goes, my kids, he told me one time I was giving him a ride somewhere to a conference, and he goes, my kids are going to be so surprised. He said, because when I finally die, he said, all my money is going. He said, I'm going to give them something. He said, but all my money's going to work, to missionary work. He said, because they don't deserve it. I sure hope none of his kids listen to this. Get a phone call. But isn't that reality, though? All that we work and all that we have and all that we do is just going to be given to somebody else. And who knows if that person's going to be even a good person. We're going somewhere. I know this sounds kind of discouraging, but we're going somewhere, I promise. In verse number 20, he says, my hatred caused me to despair over all that I work. So look at verse 20, and I'll finish that statement. Therefore, I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took on the Son. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and in equity, yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. He said, I give it to somebody, and is he going to even keep it to hand it on the next guy, or is he just going to consume it? What's going to happen? He says, just cause me to despair over all this work, because what's going to happen to it? What's going to happen? Verse 22. For what hath a man of all, and I'm going somewhere, I promise. I have some conclusions. I know this may sound like I'm just kind of rambling, but there's a point to it. For what hath a man of all his labor and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief, yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This also is vanity. He said, I'm questioning. He said, what do I have really to show for all this other than grief and labor and sorrow and wanting for more? What do I have to show for it? And lastly, he gave us a conclusion, and this is so cool. This conclusion that he comes to, that he ends this chapter, this paragraph with, listen to what he says. There's nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten thereunto more than I? For God hath given to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he giveth travail to gather, to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. What's he trying to say? What's this conclusion he's trying to come to? Number one, the enjoyment that the preacher was trying to tell us, the enjoyment is in the doing and the getting, not just in the having. He says, because there's nothing better than a man should eat and drink, and he should enjoy his soul in the good in his labor. He said that's where the joy is. It's in the doing and the getting, not just in the having. He said that's the gift of God. That comes from the hand of God. And God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to the good, while giving the fool the travail of just gathering for the good to enjoy later. So he comes to this conclusion that simply says that it's not so much that he said, I labored and I worked and I travailed and I gained and I learned and I bought and I've been purchased and I built. He said, I have all these things. And rather than trying to say, I look back and say, this is all going to the next guy. And to me, on the inside, that's just a travail, and that's just a vexation of spirit, and that's just hevel, that's just vanity. He said, but what the joy is, what the enjoyment is, what the pleasure is the fact that I got to do it. That is what comes from the hand of God. The application. You see, this isn't about having, it's about the doing and the getting. We strive so hard in this American dream culture to reach what time of life? What time do we always strive to get to?
The golden years.
The golden years. And we call it starts with the letter R, retirement. I got my 401k. I got my house, got my Social Security coming in, gonna get me at one of them RVs, and I'm gonna travel the country, and it's gonna be great.
Then you wake up.
And then you get the bursitis and the arthritis and all the other things, the endonitis. And before you can really enjoy the golden years, you realize they're called the golden years because they cost you so much just in doctor bills. My parents, they retired. And what's really neat is when I look at their life, and they're enjoying the retirement. They really are. They get to come see me a couple, 3 times a year. I mean, what's there not to love about that? Well, my wife and the children. Me, they're just like, eh. But when I stop and I think back through the life that we lived, and then I've continued on with my wife and children, and someday my children will continue through their spouses and children, that the joy, the gift, the blessing of God is in the doing, not just reaching this one set time where I finally don't have to go clock in at Douglas Electric or North Yarmouth Academy or wherever it is that you work. The joy was in the doing. We've come to the age now, my wife and I, our children are older and they tell stories and we have a great time, and bless you, and most of them are true. We sat around our table last night consuming large amounts of food because Josh demanded, since we weren't here for Thanksgiving, he's like, you're going to put on another Thanksgiving meal this Saturday, you got to get back. So last night, literally, we ate thousands and thousands of calories worth of food. And literally, we were all comparing our pregnant bellies. I was pretty close. And I think Josh beat us all. He was hurting. He was like rolling on the couch like a woman in labor. You know. But as we were sitting around the table, consuming large amounts of my wife's food, the stories and the memories and the joy of the life that we had been living together over these last 25, 30 years, that's where the joy is. Not the fact of any possessions that we've had, not the fact of any bit of wisdom and knowledge that we have, because it's about the having and doing, not just about, or it's not about the having, but it's about the doing and the getting. That's the joy and the blessing. And that's the picture that this preacher is going to be painting for us through the next few chapters. Second thought. We ought to be seeking the good, the wisdom, and the enjoyment rather than just trying to have something to show for it.
Yeah.
We should be seeking the good, the wisdom, and the enjoyment rather than just trying to say, I have something for which I sought the good, the wisdom, and the enjoyment for. And as he said in, where is it? I'm going to completely miss it. I'm not going to be able to find it. I'm not going to find it. The verse. Oh, verse 13. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly. This is not just an open case permission slip to do whatever you want. But he did put the limitations on that it's better to have it bound within the concealment of good and wisdom and righteousness. But it's the seeking of good and seeking of wisdom and seeking of joy rather than just trying to have something to show for the seeking. If all we are doing is trying to have, we'll end up as the fool, just passing on to another who never did anything to get it. If all I'm seeking is to get, all that's going to happen is I'm going to go to the grave, and everything I sought to get is just going to be handed on to somebody else. My wife's next husband. My wife have arguments at least three times a week of who gets to go to eternity first. And we all know that God loves me more, and I get to go first. But this, if all I'm seeking to have rather than enjoying the getting, it's going to rob me of my enjoyment of the getting and doing, and it's going to steal the enjoyment of the getting and doing by those that get my stuff. Did you catch that? If all I'm living for is to get to there and to have that and have that and have that and be that and to know that, if that's all I'm seeking after, when I die, that gets handed to the next person. What's going to happen is I'm going to miss the enjoyment of getting those things and doing those things and learning those things. And the person that's going to come after me that's going to gain those things, I'm robbing them of their opportunity to get and enjoy it. So I'm not just hurting myself, I'm also hurting the people coming behind me. And with that mindset, it's easier to understand what he's going to teach us in the next 9 chapters. Understanding this, and you have to understand that this is all bound. He did give those prerequisites throughout. You find it through the righteousness and the wisdom and those things. He's not just giving a free for all blank check to just do whatever you want. It has to be done through wisdom. It has to be done through righteousness. It has to be done through propriety. But the joy is found within the doing and the getting, not just in the having. It's the doing, not the done. It's the getting, not the gotten. It's the adventure, not the venture. It's the being, not the buying. It's the bearing, not the burden. It's the living, not the life. It's the treasuring, not the treasure. It's the eating and drinking, not the food and the wine. It's the gaining and not the gain. If we seek for treasure, reward, award, accolade, accomplishment, ranking, title, position, or place, if that's all we're seeking for, it's just going to be handed to somebody else. But our lives are to be about the doing and the action, the trying, the failing, the learning, and the growing. That's the gift of God. I think that the preacher is trying to tell us through these chapters. That it's the enjoying of the doing. That's the gift of God. And I think that's what we see as this major theme, because if we just go around and say, vanity, vanity, all is vanity and vexation of spirit, that's a depressing way to live. But he's trying to prove a point that it's not just about trying to get this all and have this all and learn this all and be this all and know this all. But the enjoyment comes in the seeking and the doing and the getting and the living. That's where the joy is. Because we understand that this life is temporary and this life is but a vapor. And ere the silver cord break, I mean, we're all literally one heartbeat away from eternity. And if we don't stop long enough and realize that there's a reason God gave us this life to live this life. And yes, it comes with those two things. We can't forget those. Those are the foundation for which we live this life. But that's why we're supposed to enjoy why we do what we do. It's not about the having, but it's more about the doing and the getting. That's where the enjoyment is. And that's where we're going to find ourselves as we dig through the rest of this guy's mind. And then that's also why we understand when we get to chapter 12. And it'll be like, now that makes sense. Have you ever noticed, has anybody in this room noticed that sometimes this life is really, really hard and sometimes really, really stinky? Anybody else notice that? I've gotten a few hints of that in the last, 49 years I've been on this planet. Sometimes this doing is hard and sometimes it hurts. And sometimes it's not the result that we were looking for and seeking after and working so hard to get. And God says that's why you're supposed to enjoy the doing and the getting, because that's the gift of God of this life. And that'll help us as we understand and we start tearing down and getting deeper and deeper into this letter. If you understand, it's not just all about being depressed and saying it's all just devil. It's all just this yearning and longing that you're never going to have nothing. But he's trying to prove a point. And we'll understand that as we get deeper and deeper into the book. Amen. All right, questions, concerns, comments, anything? Yes, Pastor.
I just thought, like, for our more visual thinkers, a really good way to illustrate this would be, if you ever see a picture of a concert, everybody in the stands or on the, I don't know what you put it, on the floor watching, they all have their cell phones held up to record what they're seeing. When I say everybody, I really mean
Everybody.
virtually everybody.
This is the best concert I've ever seen.
Right. And they're kind of missing the experience in their pursuit.
Right.
Have that experience locked in forever. And I think that might capture what you're saying is they're trying to acquire this thing and have it and attain it and hold it in their hands instead of just saying, I'm living this, right? I'm enjoying this experience. And maybe that's what Solomon's trying to encourage us to do in life.
What's that doctrinal biblical videography work? Has Ben Stiller in it, and he works for some newspaper, Newsweek or something, and he starts seeking after the photographer. Have you ever seen, what's that movie?
I really don't know. I thought you were going night at the museum and then
No. You know which one I'm talking about? He's like, and he ends up going like on the ship and he falls into the ocean and then he climbs the mountain. He's trying to find Madonna's boyfriend. What was his name? Anyway.
Was this the dream?
No, this is a movie. No, this is a movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. Anyway. It's actually a cute little movie. Well, anyway, he's sitting up on this mountain because he finally, out in the middle of nowhere, up in China or communist somewhere, he's out in the middle of nowhere.
The Secret Life
Yes,
of
Walter Mitty. That's it.
Boy, they sure altered that.
I've never seen it.
I destroyed that, didn't I? You'll never want to watch it now. But there's a scene in that movie where he finally finds this photographer that he's literally running all over the world trying to chase him down because he's trying to get, anyway, I'm not going to spoil it anymore, but too late. But he's up on this mountain and the photographer's has this zoom lens about this big, trying to get a picture of this certain type of fox that nobody has really been able to get a good picture of because it's so elusive. And he's finally, and they're sitting there in the quiet and he goes, oh, there it is. He goes, look. And he looks through it and they both look back and forth through the camera. And the Ben Stiller character goes, aren't you going to take a picture? He goes, no. Sometimes I just want to enjoy the moment. Some thought there. There's some thought there. That was so. Now y'all want to go watch that dumb movie. Don't do it. Don't go down my recommendation. I just remember that scene where they're up on that mountain. He goes, well, aren't you going to take a picture? He goes, no. I think I'm just going to sit here and enjoy it. Sometimes you just have to stop and enjoy it. And Kim?
When you're working, toward the goal, there's all kinds of lessons you learn in the process too.
Yeah.
You wouldn't necessarily learn if it just landed in your lap.
Right. If I just woke up one day and my 401k was tanking full of cash.
Then you woke up.
And then I woke up.
That would be great.
All right, let's pray. Father, I love you and I thank you for the Bible. And I ask, dear God, as we work our way through Ecclesiastes, that we would understand the treasure to be found in this letter. We love you so much and thank you for all that you've done for us. And I pray that you bless our service in just a few minutes. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen.
All right, guys, let's break. Testing, testing, 1, 2. All righty.
You hear me?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good to see a good group of folks here. It's like that scene from a Christmas movie. Christmas Story, when he stuck his tongue on the flagpole, you know. If I pull any harder, it's going to break the glass. It's good, though. It'll melt. It'll melt. Okay, quick question. Is the coffee blueberry this morning? I like it just fine. I'm curious. Steve, you've been drinking this stuff. Is it blueberry? Come on. I need to know I'm not going crazy.
Is it my blueberry?
Is it?
Is it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Who made blueberry coffee? Turned out the other day.